Before we get going on today's interview, if you're not already reading Must Read Alaska every day, you're missing half the story. Must Read Alaska is where Alaskans go to find out what's actually happening in this state: the politics, the policy, the people, without the spin you get from the legacy press. Just straight talk, Alaska first. You can support Must Read Alaska with a subscription. Use the code THESOCIAL10 at checkout, and you'll take 10% off our In for News or All In annual plans. That's THESOCIAL10, the Social 10. Go to mustreadalaska.com, hit subscribe on your podcast app, and keep Alaska's most trusted independent news source running.
Welcome to The Social, Must Read Alaska segment on the events, communities, and conversations that make this state worth living in. I am your host, Todd. Today, we are going to be talking about a pretty interesting subject. It's one that we initiated here on Must Read Alaska to participate in the country's 250th anniversary, as we're going to be celebrating that this coming July 4th, but also to recognize some people that have been very important in Alaska's history as to why we have the freedom that we do and why we need to remember the sacrifice that they made on our behalf. So, today, what we're going to talk about is Must Read Alaska has recently kicked off a series. So, you guys may have seen it. It's called The Service to My Country. And what we were trying to do was we know that we have a very large audience here, that many of you are veterans and you've been a part of the veteran community for multiple different, conflicts that the U.S. has participated in. And what we wanted to do was highlight some of these incredible stories, highlight, what it was that drove each and every one of you, men and women, to join and serve the country, and to tell a little bit about why you did it, and what the values are that you took away from it, and just some of the things that you've learned along the way. We've had some incredible submissions. Our editor who's joined us here today is going to help walk us through some of this, and we wanted to share it as encouragement because it really is great when we get to see this, and I think it's something that we miss in a lot of ways in our current dialogue. There's been a lot of especially with the new Department of War and Pete Hegseth, he's really tried to reinstill this warrior ethos, rebuilding the military into what it is, and this, the virtues, the courage, all of these things. And so with Must Read Alaska, we wanted to help do our part and elevate these stories to what they are and to be able to share them with you. So I'm going to introduce our special guest here today, who has helped coordinate this, to tell us about this series and maybe just kind of give us some inspiration a little bit. So, Natalie, thank you very much for joining us here today. If you want, introduce yourself a little bit, explain the series and the submission requirements, and why you wanted to do this.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Todd. Thank you for taking time to sit down and talk about this on the show. I really appreciate it. Um, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Natalie Spaulding. I'm the Operations Communications Director for Must Read Alaska. I do a lot of the writing, and I'm the acting editor. And I wanted to start this series after getting an op-ed by Paul Bauer Jr., Paul A. Bauer, uh, who was writing about his perspective on being thanked for his service as a veteran. And he basically said that um, being thanked, saying people saying thank you for your service has become kind of perfunctory. It's become
Mm,
just something people say without thinking deeper into that.
yeah.
And it kind of comes off as insincere. at times, even if the person is sincere, it can come off as insincere. And I
Hmm.
do think there is sort of that, oh, you see a veteran and it's like, oh, thank you for your service. And some people don't even say it anymore.
Yeah.
But the people who do, it can come off as just I'm doing I'm just thinking it, checking it off the list and not really
Mm,
caring to
interesting.
look more or learn more from that veteran. So one of the things he suggested was instead of just saying thank you for your service, to like ask questions. Ask like what branch did you serve in? What did you do? Where do you serve? What did your service teach you? And I think those are really great questions. And there's something I'm interested in hearing answers from different veterans and hearing perspectives from the people who served our country, who chose to do that. Because there's numerous lessons you learn
Hmm.
by taking on that responsibility and duty to go and fight for your country.
Hmm.
Um, so I started the series. Asking veterans and also active duty service members, any anyone in the military or who was in the military, what they did, how long did they serve, if anyone else in their family served, what branch they chose and why. And then also some of the deeper questions that I want people to reflect on and share with us is what is the greatest challenge you faced during your service and how did you overcome it? What was the most significant lesson you learned during your service? And my favorite one is if you could say one thing to young Americans aged 18 to 25, what would you say?
Hmm.
Um, that those are just guiding questions that I've offered and would like people to respond to, but I'm welcoming submissions that address anything really that veterans or active duty service members want to share. Um, and then for the requirements of the submission,
Hmm.
it'd be limited to 1,000 words, must be written in the first person. It's got to be your story. It's going to be published with the veteran's name who wrote it, limiting foul language and citing quotes, direct quotes, and data points
Hmm.
correctly. But really, I want veterans and active duty service members to have fun with this, to be creative, and to share the lessons that they learned during that time in their lives, especially with the younger generation.
Hmm.
Um, I think that my generation and what is it, Gen Alphas after us,
Yeah.
are losing the sense that we can learn from people who are older and wiser than us. There's this popular narrative that I've come across multiple times that older people don't know what's up.
Hmm.
They don't have anything to teach you. They're all stuck in the old ways of and that it's the young people that have all the answers, which doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to me. Because
It's probably one of those age-old things, right? But it's probably manifested a bit differently in today's society than maybe what it has in the past, right?
yes, yes, and it's just I as a young person myself, I want to put some effort into finding ways for older and wiser people to share their experience and
Hmm.
perspectives and the lessons that they've learned with people, with a broad audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's a really good point, right? Because with wisdom, I mean, at some point there's got to be a clear handoff, and I think we've got to look for those opportunities. And what you've described here with just the context of what many of these veterans have done, and just the incredible stories that many of these people carry with them, and you never know unless you ask, right? But being able to inspire and to motivate and lead, and part of that leadership is to be able to identify those next generation of leaders so that they can build upon that wisdom. And, in the context here, we're talking about those that have signed up, volunteered to serve their country.
Mhm.
Those values, the morals, and everything kind of have to be passed on in a way that continue to inspire and motivate. So this is fantastic. We've had some really good submissions so far. So what else are you hoping to accomplish with this series, Natalie?
Yeah, there's three main things that I hope to accomplish with this series. The first one is just a genuine expression of gratitude
Yep.
for our veterans and active duty service members. I grew up in a family that was always, very grateful towards the military, always very supportive of the American military. My great grandfather actually served in World War II and was awarded a Purple Heart,
Wow.
which was, I mean, just growing up with those stories is really impactful. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to express gratitude for our veterans, active duty service members.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is just I think this series goes well with the time right now where America's taking time to reflect on the nation, with America turning 250 years old uh, this July 4th. So I see it as part of the America 250 celebrations and reflections and the this unique time right now of reflection in our country. And then three is to promote the virtues of honor, courage, service, sacrifice, perseverance, responsibility, leadership. There's so many virtues that
Mm-hmm.
service members exemplify and have to take on to be able to serve the country well. And those are virtues that we need to see more of in our culture, especially among young Americans, and even more especially among young American men,
Mm-hmm.
um, who have largely lost sense of those virtues of sacrifice, of
Yep.
courage, of having the humility to take orders, even, or
Mm-hmm.
to have the leadership skills and the sense of confidence and humility that comes with being responsible for other people's lives.
Yeah.
It's a huge and really important calling, that that is important, I think, especially right now in our culture.
Yeah, I would agree. And, as you're sitting here talking, it just reminds me like over the last, week and a half or so, we've been having all of the D-Day replays, and we're seeing this greatest generation. And when you talk about courage, right, is many of the photos and videos, and including, the movies like Saving Private Ryan or the shows on TV like Band of Brothers or The Pacific, where you've got these just very in-depth, you know, depictions of what that particular war was like, specifically in World War II, and the amount of courage that it would take to run headfirst into just a hail of gunfire.
Mhm.
And I mean that just is incredible courage, resiliency, and discipline. And you just continue to stack on that with the generation that went through Vietnam, and you had Desert Storm, the list goes long on, including up to where we're at here today. Now, you mentioned something there towards the end is reinstilling many of these virtues, and especially for our young American men. So why focus specifically on the men, specifically when we also have women serve? So, what is it about the young men that we need to address?
Yeah, I think first it's important to clarify that both the service of men and women in our military is incredibly valuable
Hmm.
and appreciated. And we want to hear the stories of both male and female veterans and service members, absolutely. And focusing on the impact that this series has or could
Hmm.
potentially have on the culture, specifically focused on American men, is not to like depreciate women at all, but it's to acknowledge the fact that American men right now are struggling more with a sense of ambition and a sense of identity
Yep.
than the young American women are. Young American women are largely doing well. They are rising to the occasion. They have less mental health issues than American men. Mental health issues are on the rise in America, generally speaking,
Hmm.
but it's the men, it's like they're 4 times more likely to struggle with depression, anxiety, thoughts of suicide. There's a real issue there.
Yeah.
Um, and in my own experience, and not just looking at statistics, I've seen that the men, especially the young men in our culture, they have a lack of direction. They
Hmm.
seem to lack ambition, and the desire to exemplify and to reach for these virtues of honor and
Hmm.
courage and sacrifice, and the desire to take responsibility onto themselves that's really important responsibility,
Yeah.
uh, where it's impacting other people's lives, it's impacting the country. That sense of responsibility
Hmm.
is huge, and young American men need to rise to that occasion. They need to rise to it. Um, and that's sort of my thoughts there.
Coming to Anchorage, it's the Beatles versus the Stones. Get ready for a musical showdown, a British invasion. You'll finally answer the greatest debate in rock history. Who's better, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones? Two of the country's best tribute bands put on the greatest concert that never was, right here in Discovery Theatre. Tickets on sale now at sanatix.com. Presented by Alaska Airlines, and proceeds benefit the Alliance Alaska Region Baseball. Get your tickets now, sanatix.com.
Yeah. Well, and I think you pointed out some really interesting statistics, right? And I think ideologically, when you look at it, especially, those that are on kind of the conservative side of things, I think a lot of what you're seeing is very true, right? I mean, there's a reason why we have moms for liberty and not dads for liberty. We don't have a lot of the men that, have found that place to kind of reclaim that masculinity in a lot of ways. And your point is very prescient in terms of, they're just lacking direction, or, for other words, they're just lacking a mission. What is that mission? What is that crusade that they're going to embark on in order to change the culture?
Mhm.
And I think this is a really good way of doing it. And especially, focusing as you have on, what it was that intrinsically motivated some of these men and women to join up and volunteer to serve their country. So along those lines, Natalie, how does this series help shift our culture?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is that people benefit from hearing real stories. People
Yep.
want to hear from real people. Like, they don't
Hmm.
want a manipulated, propagandized version of what military service looks like. They want the real stories, because that's what matters. And it's the good, the bad, the ugly. It's the truth in these stories that really speak to the younger generation. And hearing about those values from those people who lived them, hearing about those values of sacrifice and honor and duty and courage from the people who lived that out, that tells people, especially young people, that this is not abstract. It's not just made up for a political agenda. It's
Yep.
real life. And and it's important to put the success stories out there. I We hear a lot in the media about sort of negative aspects of veteran life, the mental health issues among the veteran population, which are absolutely real. but there are success stories that are just as real. And I think that is an encouraging thing to the culture to hear these success stories of. So, for example, our first two articles are by two very successful men who served, and our one is now a doctor and a small business owner. That's
Hmm.
Dr. Michael Hanifen. And the other is running for lieutenant governor in this year's race, and that's
Yeah.
Josh Church.
Hmm.
So there's stories out there of veterans who went and served and did amazing things and saw, you know, ugly, ugly things, but rose above it.
Hmm.
And they fought, they served, they persevered during their military service,
Yep.
and then they continued to serve and fight and persevere in civilian life. I think that that is important, and hearing those stories can start to shift the culture towards those values of service and
Hmm.
determination and perseverance. Um,
That's right. If I can say one thing on the perseverance, right, is, when you look at it in context of the biblical worldview, it's not, here I am and you do nothing else, right? It's like you have been called to finish your race. And I think these two examples that you've pointed out here with Mr. Hannaford, Dr. Hannafin, and Mr. Church is, these guys, they serve their country, but then they just didn't stop there. I mean, they are
Mhm.
doing something in the community. They are running for public office to continue that legacy of service because, that's what makes us a more perfect union. And, it calls us, as St. Paul says, to finish your race. So, I mean, that's a perfect, way of putting this, Natalie. Please go on.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, especially if we're going to talk about like the mental health aspect of, right now we've got American men who largely are experiencing a mental health crisis. It's just the statistics are out of the water. And then you have the veteran population, which also has some serious mental health
Hmm.
issues. Um, and I firmly believe that one of the drivers of poor mental health is having a lack of purpose.
Yep.
It's exactly saying, okay, I did my part and now I'm done. And then if you have that perspective of, well, I did my part, now I'm done, and you don't go on and persevere and continue to do things that better the community, you lose a sense of purpose, you lose a sense of identity. There's something that's missing there. So I
Hmm.
think having these stories out there and encouraging veterans and encouraging people to not just stop at one thing, but to continue through their lives to find purpose, to find a mission, to persevere and bring um, value into their lives that way
Hmm.
is really important. Um, and the another thing as well is what I mentioned before is having these veterans and active duty service members speak
Hmm.
directly to the young generation, to Americans aged like 18 to 25, so my age range,
Hmm.
um, and and to specifically talk to them because I despite the current culture of sort of disrespect and not really wanting the advice of older and wiser people, I think there's something in people my age that want it. Like we
Yep.
want to hear from people who are older and wiser who have gone through things and lived a life that exemplifies virtues because that is, we're just speaking off the cuff now, but we're just stepping into adult life, right?
Yep.
We're just stepping into figuring out what we want to do with our lives and what is going to be our mission
Hmm.
specifically and our purpose. Um, and having examples of people who have already done that and were successful and were able to handle really tremendous things is just it's really inspiring and encouraging to people in my age range who are just starting it out. And, some of us, many of us think, how can I really make a difference? And what, um, like, there's a lot of like thinking, I know I lost that thought. Darn.
No, you're good. I mean, I think if I can jump in real quickly, I think this whole concept of mentoring or role modeling is something that we've largely kind of just let go by the wayside. I mean, I think it's a cliche thing in some ways to say, oh, well, we've got mentors and role models and do this, and that may be true. I'm not trying to diminish the roles that people like that play, but when you've got somebody here that in the veteran world or even active duty, right, is the role model that they are shows that I've committed myself to a purpose that's greater than I am. And I've had to put myself aside in order to pursue this bigger purpose. And in order to
Mhm.
do that, I had to incorporate discipline. I had to, listen to those that had that experience. And then the responsibility of those that have that experience now is we have to guide them, through our actions. So, how we live our life, as we finish the race, if I can go back to that analogy, is we have to continue to model those virtues of discipline. We have to continue to model perseverance. Because if the older generation is not seen as showing that they can finish their race well, then how are we supposed to encourage and motivate the next generation to do the same? They're just going to continue to see that, life will be comfortable. I can go and, pursue things that are more, vices or instant gratification type things. Or I can
Mhm.
put that down and I can actually go and pursue the things that are hard because that's what makes us great. And
Yes.
especially this is what the men have done, the men and women of the military have done is, I mean, they chose a path of resistance and they put themselves into an uncomfortable position whether they saw combat or not. And if they did see combat, I mean, those are just things that, to come away from that and to share those experiences, like the stories are just they're incredible, and there is a lot to learn from that. I mean, it models, and maybe that's what the series is trying to draw out, is maybe you didn't realize that you were a role model or that your service was as valuable that it is. But if
Mhm.
I can use an example from my own professional life, is I never served in the military, but I was in the oil and gas industry for many years, and safety was a really big deal, and continues to be that way. But one of the safety leaders that we had at a facility that I worked at, he used to say, whether you like it or not, you're a role model to all those around you, or you're a safety leader. And I really took that to heart, right? Because, at that point, you're shifting that mentality to say everything that I do, what I say, who I am, how I act, that is seen by others around me. And, maybe that's the reminder of to the veterans and the active duty people out here is that you actually are probably being seen a lot more than you give yourself credit for. And that's how we want to
Mhm.
help tell this story.
Yeah, yeah, that is perfectly said, really. Um, yeah.
Well, Natalie, is there anything else you want to talk about or any other questions that I should be asking about this series?
Well, I think I would like to just take a little bit time to share the responses to that question of what
Yeah,
would you say to an American between the age of 18 and 25 years old, just to hear I because it's great. Because when I read it,
yeah,
I was like, this is awesome. This
yeah,
is
let's hear it.
so. from Dr. Michael Hanifen, who served in the United States Air Force. He earned the rank of Staff Sergeant and
Hmm.
served as a non-commissioned officer in charge, um, including 2 deployments in Saudi Arabia in support of Operation Southern Watch. Just a
Hmm.
little context who he is. His answer to the question, what would he say if he could say one thing to Americans between 18 and 25 years old? He would say this. Become someone worthy of respect. Pursue discipline. Embrace hardship instead of avoiding it. Have pride in your country even while recognizing it is imperfect. I love that one.
Wow.
Freedom survives only when people are willing to sacrifice for it. Like,
Hmm.
talk about dropping truths. That is this this
Wow.
string of advice here is something young people need to hear. Our culture really needs to hear right now.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I, I mean, just to break it down, the first one, become someone worthy of respect. Like, there's this strange sort of philosophy going around right now that you should just you should be entitled to respect no matter what.
Hmm.
And I 100% disagree with this. You have I I believe you that respect is earned, respect is built. It's something that comes after you have demonstrated that you are someone worthy of respect.
Hmm.
So I think that one's really important and something that our culture is going away from right now. And then pursuing discipline. I mean, you mentioned earlier how everything in our culture right now is about convenience. It's all
Yep.
about just choose the easy life, right? No, choose discipline. Discipline yourself, become someone worthy of respect. The next one, embrace hardship.
Hmm.
Yes. Um, that is so countercultural right now. But it's something like when you do that, when you embrace the hardship and pursue discipline and make yourself actually worthy of respect, you have a greater sense of purpose in your
Hmm.
life. You have a more fulfillment in your life.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, then there's the answer from Josh Church. So Josh
Hmm.
Church, he served in the United States Marine Corps for 9 years. He served in the 2nd Reconnaissance Battalion and then later in Marine Special Ops. He was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, um, and he oversaw projects ranging from military training facilities to operational logistics in combat environments. Um, and
Mm.
his answer to the question is do things voluntarily. Modern society often encourages comfort, convenience, and avoidance of discomfort, but growth rarely happens in comfort. Some of the most meaningful experiences in my life came from situations I initially did not think I could handle. Service can take many forms. Young people benefit tremendously from experiences that force responsibility, accountability, discipline, and teamwork. Challenge yourself physically, learn useful skills, and put yourself in environments where performance matters and excuses do not. You will discover strengths you did not know you had. You will also discover weaknesses, and that is equally important. So good. There's
No
like
kidding.
I just don't have much to add to that. It's just straight up what the culture needs to hear right now, and I would love to get so many more submissions from veterans willing to share truth like this.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just go ahead and leave the mic drop right there because those guys said it best, and I think that right there nails the essence of what you're trying to do, Natalie. And I really appreciate you taking the initiative on this one. I mean, the stuff that we've received thus far, including what you've shared here today, wow, that's all I got to say. So, well, Natalie, just to kind of wrap up here today, you want to just go through real briefly kind of the submission process, like how can people send the submissions to you, and then where can they find them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you are listening to this and you're a veteran or an active duty service member, please share your story with us. I would absolutely love to work with you and get that story out there for for people to read. So I have the requirements listed in, if you go to the website and search service to my country,
Mm-hmm.
I have the guiding questions and requirements on every post of the Service to My Country series. I'll also go through them here real quick, and we can put them in
Yeah, we'll
the
put them in the
podcast
show notes.
description
Yeah.
as well. So the word limit is 1,000 words. It must be written in first person because it's your story. Um, it must be published with your legal name, the author's legal name. There's no pen names, no ghostwriting. Um, there's no foul language in it, and any direct quotes and data points that you use have to be cited, and a link to the source, or just a simple citation if it's from a book is perfectly fine. And then I really want you all to have fun and be creative with it, and to take time during this time of America's 250th to reflect on this incredible thing that you did or are doing currently. Um,
That's right.
and you can submit your story to editor@mustreadalaska.com.
Very good.
Sorry, you can hear my baby whining in the background here, and maybe maybe someday
He's working on the virtues that we've talked about here.
maybe he'll grow up and serve the country as well.
There you go. Fantastic. That's editor@mustreadalaska.com, and we will include the links in the show notes so that way you guys can find it easily there. And Natalie is excited and ready to work with all of our veteran community, both retired or active duty. And on behalf of Must Read Alaska, thank you all very much for your service and for allowing us the great responsibility of helping share your story. So with that, I am Todd. This is the social segment on Must Read Alaska. Until next time, we'll see you then.